We're about to share our initial review of Where Bluebirds Fly. Now, one little note of warning, we are having a few internet issues. I don't know if it's on my side or if it's on Aaron's side, so there may be some awkward silences or moments of editing in this YouTube video, or if you're watching us live. But that's why we always tell you, go subscribe over at oncepodcast.com so you get the best quality recording, which is not prone to issues with internet connections. And it's edited nicely. So subscribe in your favorite podcast app by going to oncepodcast.com. And now here we go with the podcast episode. You're listening to Once, episode 294, Where Bluebirds Fly, Initial Reactions. Welcome back to another episode of Once, the unofficial podcast for ABC's TV show, Once Upon a Time. I'm Daniel J. Lewis.
I'm Erin.
And we are excited about the upcoming finale. Now, if you can make it to Cincinnati for our finale party, please go to oncepodcast.com/party, and that's where you can register for our party. It doesn't cost anything to come. We'd love to have you there and love to watch Once Upon a Time with you, record our Initial Reactions podcast with you there. We're really looking forward to it. All the details, the schedule, and everything are at oncepodcast.com/party. Do take note, there is a 1-hour special before the 2-hour finale starts. So if you're planning to DVR the recording, make sure that you have it set for an hour early and have it set to go for 3 hours long, because there will be some awesomeness, I'm sure. Let's get into Where Bluebirds Fly. Props to my wife, Jenny, for knowing that this was a reference to the song Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which is kind of a reference to Oz, which makes sense now with this episode.
It does. I did not know the title until I opened this podcast document. So
It's one of those that made the least sense, I think, of any title I've ever seen before. And even seeing the episode, if you didn't know that Where Bluebirds Fly is that whole chain of things, I don't think it would make that much sense. But then again, they've used other phrases and such that are from books or poems or other things like that that do bear some connection with the episode, not necessarily something that's tied directly to the stories in the episode.
there was it the Neverland episode? Did they have a double called Two Stars to the Right and Straight on Till Morning or something? Or am
Yeah.
I making that up?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
the before the Neverland season. So that was the end of season 2, the final 2 episodes of that.
Okay. So yeah, they have had some plays on titles. Maybe they're just running out of titles. It was appropriate. I liked seeing that where were we today? Oz. I liked seeing that Oz flashback. They're getting more traditional again with the flashbacks, which I enjoy. That's what made us love the show, I think. So
Going up to this episode, I usually don't watch the promos. Sometimes I'll watch them after we've recorded our most recent episode, a full discussion episode. So that way I'm spoiler free for the discussion. And sometimes I see the promo for the next episode. I hadn't seen the promo, but because I turn on the TV before the show comes on, every now and then something slips through. And in the promo, did they not say someone's going to pay the ultimate sacrifice?
and they did.
They paid a big sacrifice. Yes. The ultimate sacrifice? No.
Maybe not for her. I feel like if Rumpel gave away all his magic, that would be the ultimate sacrifice for him because that is the thing he loves most. So perhaps not for Zelina because she willingly gave it and didn't even seem that tormented about it.
Well, it was a hard decision, clearly. but she's still alive. And in the chat room, some of us thought that maybe she would, fall over, her nose would start bleeding, and she would die right there. But no, she's still alive, and that's good. I'm not saying she has to die. But there was no ultimate sacrifice. A sacrifice, yes. Ultimate sacrifice, it's marketing hype.
Yeah, it's true. I didn't think of the fact that she didn't necessarily know she wouldn't die from making that sacrifice when she made it, because that's why she was saying, "Promise me you'll take care of Robin."
Yeah.
She's probably in a better place now, honestly. She's been kind of living alone in that cabin, taking care of Robin by herself, just kind of wanting to be left alone, and all of these magical people keep approaching her and, trying to get her on their side, the side of good or the side of bad, and now she has no magic to kind of draw attention to herself, and she can perhaps just live a normal life now.
And now she can be there, yeah, at the farmhouse, being all wicked and, being a mother and nice things like that.
Yeah.
I this thing of like turning the crystals dark and then turning them back clear, uh, interesting, but it felt like almost. No, let me try this again. Where do I want to go with this? Initial reactions, guys. So our thoughts aren't all thought out. So I got the impression that although the plan for the Black Fairy was to turn all of the crystals black so that she could use them to start the final battle, that was undone. But she seems to be not really fazed by it. She's more afraid of the Blue Fairy than of the fact that she doesn't have all of these black crystals anymore.
And I have a little bit of a theory about that just based on what they said tonight. I'm just wondering if the kind of original good versus evil battle from way back in the day, since we know that Blue Fairy was at least around a very, 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 very long time ago, and so was Black Fairy, that perhaps Blue has the other half of that wand and is the one that originally banished the Black Fairy away. However, it seems peculiar if that is the case that the Black Fairy was so easy to get Gideon from Blue when like recently in this kind of timeline.
Well, it would make sense because Blue didn't have that wand. That wand, as Tiger Lily said, is what was used to banish the Black Fairy. And previously, from the episode Quite a Common Fairy, we learned that, or no, it was Going Home, we learned that the Blue Fairy was the one who banished the Black Fairy to the Dark Realm. So I think it's this knowledge that the Blue Fairy has is a weapon, and maybe she has or knows where the other piece is to this elder wand.
Does Black Fairy know that Emma has that piece of the wand now? Sorry, I
Yes,
don't recall. Okay. So that would make sense too that she's distraught about that idea.
but her main concern is her darkest secret, and that's the real reason she gave up Rumple.
Which is interesting. I'm wondering what they're gonna do with that because I wonder if it's gonna kinda come full circle where she, air quote, "made a deal," and that's the reason why she gave up her baby, and then now, Rumple grew up to feel abandoned and then ended up making deals for people's firstborn babies.
Mhm.
It's just a very cyclical family dynamic happening.
Well, and is this darkest secret a weapon that can be used against the Black Fairy, or is it simply a thing she doesn't want other people to know?
That's interesting. I didn't think of that it could be a weapon. Um, I think definitely Blue has to have some kind of knowledge, even if that's not the secret that the Dark Fairy or Black Fairy is so concerned with.
I wonder if it's something crazy like this. The missing part of the Elder Wand, and I keep calling it that because of the Harry Potter-like feeling of it, not because they're calling it that inside of the show. So just in case you're wondering, if you want to tell me they don't call it that in the show, I know, we call it that here. But I'm wondering if the missing part is not another object. The missing part is actually Rumple, and that the Blue Fairy had to use baby Rumple in some way because, the number of spells and potions that you can make with a baby are staggering. Maybe Blue Fairy used Rumple, baby Rumple, as part of the weapon in order to banish the Black Fairy and trap her inside of the Dark Realm.
What power? Well, I guess just because he was a baby. So it wouldn't be related at all to him being the Dark One because he wouldn't have been the Dark One yet.
Right.
Hmm.
But who's to say they couldn't see the future and knew that he would become the Dark One? But the Black Fairy was surprised that the Dark One was actually her son. That's what we saw the first time that we got to see the Black Fairy.
Do we think that the Elder Wand is the exact opposite of the Dark One dagger, perhaps?
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
Because I feel like there has to be an opposite. Because if magic it has to be kept in balance, at least that's not an idea from this show. That's from other shows that happen to have the same writers as this show. But I feel like there has to be, an equal force of good and evil, and that's what kind of keeps them warring for so long, is that they can't ultimately beat the other one because it's so equal. And although the theme of this show has been good always wins, good always defeats evil. This is how good wins. I'm just quoting, season one. Um, it does seem like good is behind the times. Like they have a savior who doesn't really know anything about her origin as a savior. She knows about her origin as far as, she was the product of true love and that type of history, like one generation. But now this is the season where we're kind of learning the backlog of saviors, perhaps. That there's been more than one, just like there's been more than one dark one. And perhaps there's always a savior and there's always a dark one. And so if the dark one has this tool, I feel like the savior should have one too.
Yeah, and for every action, there is an opposite and equal, or equal and opposite reaction. Let me just say that again. Yeah, and for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. But it seemed like we'd seen already some things that are the opposite of the Dark One dagger, like this heart from this episode that sucks out someone's magic. What happens if the Dark One dagger is placed on the heart, or the Dark One goes to that? We even saw the apprentice suck out the Dark One's darkness from his heart. But then the darkness just went around everywhere else. He couldn't tether the darkness to anything else. It had to find a person to be tethered to.
Yeah. So what's going to happen to this magic in the heart, and is that automatically good magic now, or can it be used in any way? Cuz I know the Tin Man, or yeah, I guess if we talk about the flashback, Stanum, which actually means tin. I looked it up really
Oh, cool.
quickly because that seemed like a curious name. Um, the Tin Man, we don't know whether he actually could she have used it to save his life if she was willing to sacrifice her magic at that time, or was it all kind of a ploy?
I think she could have, because this heart is Oz's version of Peter Pan's minion taser. The taser, well, that we call it a taser. Okay, yes, I know. People are like, it's a taser. How's it affecting magical people? Because it's not an ordinary taser. The taser seemed, my theory was what the taser did is it sucked the magic out of people, or it affected their magic in some way. And this heart seems to be kind of similar, except it happens to anyone who touches it. So I think what would have happened if the Tin Man had that heart put in him, or maybe if he simply touched the heart, then it would have sucked the magic out of him. And the magic that was in him was this curse that the Witch of the North, was that Glinda? The Witch of the North? Why would she do something like that? Um, because it seemed like all of the witches were good except for Zelina. But then again, they are called witches. But uh, so I can see that it work. Let me try this again. So I can see how it could have easily worked from that removing the magic. It's like a black hole for magic. It absorbs all of the magic and doesn't let it out at all. Kind of like an Olympian crystal in New York City. Oh, wait, we forgot about that. Yeah, we're not supposed to think about that.
There's been so many, magic sucking objects, magic hindering objects, objects that can control magical beings if they're tethered to that object. I kind of wish that we had established, like, maybe in the 1 hour uh, special that's before the finale, they could be like, okay, guys, here's the actual rules of magic that we're working with. But I think that they're not working with magic rules, and that's why they keep breaking them.
Yeah. Yeah. And guest 529 in our chat room is pointing out that they said Wicked Witch of the North. So they're suggesting maybe that means it wasn't Glinda because she's the good witch of the north. Maybe there's a good witch of the north and a wicked witch of the north, and maybe it's that way for all of the directions on the compass. Okay, I could see that.
Maybe, yeah.
Now, the Crimson Heart sucks magic, but you know who gives magic freely, directly from their hearts? It's our wonderful heroes who are those who would willingly give of their own hearts to save the Tin Man, the Tin Men being our podcast, those who would willingly make the ultimate sacrifice, that is simply giving their magic, to support this podcast. And so for them, we are eternally grateful. For this episode, I'd like to thank Lisa Slack and Cindy Barrick, our new hero on Patreon. And we also have 28 heroes on Patreon supporting this podcast episode after episode. Thank you very much. We could not do this without you. Now, if you have not yet been a hero for the podcast, would you consider doing so? It doesn't mean you have to give $50 or $100 per month or your name has to be mentioned in every single episode, but maybe it's $1 per month or $5 or $10 or $20. What is the podcast worth to you? When you think about how you spend $50 sometimes to go see a movie in the theater with some friends, and sometimes the movies aren't even all that great, what kind of value do you feel you're getting from the podcast when we come here to you? When we bring the podcast to you, sometimes hours of entertainment. If that's worth something to you, would you consider giving some value back? And the way you can do that is by being an amazing, attractive hero. And your options are over at oncepodcast.com/hero. Give as little as $1 per month or more if you feel we're worth it. oncepodcast.com/hero. And thank you for your support. This whole thing about finding the wedding location seemed a little silly, but then I think also makes sense. It's developing the characters, really, and letting us see how, yes, they're trying to move on. And I like that they're connecting it back with season 1 to say, on our wedding day, which was the best day of my life, the evil queen came and made it the worst day of my life. And they don't want that for Emma. I like that connection. And it makes sense then why David is being so weird through the episode.
It was very cute. I thought it was cute, especially the Mary Margaret and Emma mother-daughter scenes where Mary Margaret had the binder and had the little dress samples and basically like was very vulnerable and expressed to Emma like, I've missed so much of your life. I'm not willing to miss this. And I just feel like there's been such a call from the fans for more air quote charming moments where they get to be a family because I remember even in like starting in season 2, a lot of the feedback was like, this is a family that's just been reunited and it's like go, go, go. And there's never any, sentimental moments or just living. So I liked seeing that. And Yeah, Charming, he was a little off. I thought that maybe when they got to the bottom of it, it was gonna be, because of finding out that Hook had killed his father,
Mm.
but, no, it was cute too that he was fussing over Emma being a princess and wanting it to be perfect and not wanting not wanting her to feel what him and Snow must have felt like through their entire pregnancy, like that doom and gloom that the evil queen brought on them.
And speaking of doom and gloom, what was it that David saw in Henry's drawings? Do you think that was simply a reminder that, oh, there's this foreboding evil, so we really shouldn't move forward with the wedding? Or do you think it was something that he recognized in the drawing?
I don't know. David doesn't really strike me often as the most intellectual type, so perhaps they were just reminding us. I'm not sure.
I thought it was something that we would see in this episode. Now, it could be just that's what set him off on thinking, oh, we shouldn't be planning a wedding with all of this stuff looming over us. But I'd like to think it's something more. And, but we didn't get to see it in this episode. So if it is something more, that's something that will carry over into next episode. But if it is, I feel like they didn't focus on it enough for it to be something that can carry across to a separate episode, unless they remind us of it from the, previously on Once Upon a Time portion, which they do sometimes.
Well, we've seen now those graphics that Henry, this is the second time I think that we've seen like kind of a screenshot of the writing, and
Yeah.
yeah, they could probably definitely summarize even those short little scenes in the previously if they need to.
I really like that they showed us Henry did try to write a victory for Emma, but it didn't work. So that answers that question. That it's like they have been reading our minds before we even had these thoughts in our mind, or maybe some people had these thoughts early on, or someone in the writer's room. Hey, maybe they did hire a nerd in the writer's room who would say, hey, why doesn't Henry just write, and Emma won the final battle?
Yeah, definitely reminded me of a I know your balefire moment.
Yeah. Anything else to talk about?
I'm probably good if you are.
Okay.
Trying to think if we forgot anything.
I mean, this is only initial reaction, so it doesn't have to be thorough. I'm saying that for those watching or listening right now. I'm double checking my notes. Nothing else really standing out really big to me.
Nope, nothing that we haven't already talked about, and I just have some quotes and stuff.
Okay.
So we should be good.
Okay. So we have more to discuss and dig into with this episode, and we'd love your theories for that. So please contact us through the website. If in case that's, let me put it this way. For your convenience, you can email us at, not at, it's bad to say at when I'm about to give an email address. For your convenience, you can email feedback@oncepodcast.com or call and leave a voicemail any time of the day. Don't worry, you won't wake us up. 903-231-2221, or send a voice message through the website at oncepodcast.com. And we'd love to try and incorporate your feedback into our upcoming full discussion. Your feedback may need to be edited for clarity or brevity so that we can fit it into certain places and get the gist of what you're sharing with us. So we'd love to include you in our podcast, and we'd love to see you at our upcoming finale party. Register for that at oncepodcast.com/party. But in the meantime, please connect with us on Twitter at oncepodcast. And I'm Daniel J. Lewis on Twitter at the Daniel J. Lewis.
I'm Erin on Twitter at Erin J. Cruz.
Please share this episode out if you enjoyed it by going to oncepodcast.com/294, and all of the other links and things that we mentioned will be there in the show notes. oncepodcast.com/294. And until next time, why don't you practice on my axe? And thanks for listening. Once Podcast is a proud member of Noodle.mx Network. Find more of our award-winning and award-nominated podcasts to make you think, laugh, and succeed at Noodle.mx. Big thanks to our heroes for supporting this episode of the podcast. If you would like to be a hero too, then please go to oncepodcast.com/hero. And thank you for your support. Okay, we're done.
Ow. Jefferson. I miss Jefferson.
Yeah.
He was so good.
Oh, look at that. We didn't have any internet problems once we got into it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's funny because I had turned right before the first time it cut out. I had actually turned my phone to airplane mode, like to help, not to, not to hinder. And then we cut out, and then I actually didn't open chat again. The second time it cut out was when I was opening chat, so I just kept chat closed until the very end.
Yeah, it shouldn't really have affected it, but
It probably didn't. It's probably just a coincidence.
yeah, it might have been actually just a Google Hangouts issue that, like, it had to balance the powers once we connected, because when we stayed connected that last time, instead of hanging up or trying to reconnect,
Oh yeah.
that's when it finally worked, and it had no problems, right? Did you
Yeah.
have any problems hearing me
No,
during it?
no, it was normal.
Hmm.
But it wouldn't open chat. Like chat wouldn't open for me when it was first down. So it wasn't just Hangouts.
Oh, okay.
Our internet
Yeah.
is sporadic. Like it's a miracle that this is the first time anything's ever happened on a Sunday night. So like we've replaced all of our I live in a very old house. We've replaced all of our like wires and plugs and anything could be plugged into. So
At least you're not on dial-up.
no, we used to be, but no, we're not on dial-up. We have wireless now.
Nice.
No, it works great. Like it works very efficiently when it works. It's just when it doesn't work, it's very irritating. Like it'll work for 5 minutes and then go off. And I mean, and that was happening It was happening regularly, and now it's kind of gotten better. So hopefully, it was just temporary glitch, and I don't know if resetting obviously worked. So
yeah, that's often the thing to do. I rebooted my router and modem here too, thinking that maybe it was on my side that things were messing up.
I actually just texted downstairs and said, "Can you please reset?" Because I was like trying to stay on here, and
Yeah.
it's in a totally opposite end of the house. But
Well, hey, I want to give to everyone watching live now, if you can make it to the finale party, the place where we're going to have dinner, we're going to go Dutch on dinner and breakfast, but if you can join us for dinner, the place is right across the street from the Red Tree Art Gallery and Coffee Shop. And it's a really neat place. They gave me this menu that they said, this is the daily menu. These are the things we sell every day. Then they gave me a second menu and they said, this is what we're selling today. This menu changes every single day based on what's available because they locally source their ingredients.
oh,
So
that's
it's
cool.
yeah, it's really neat, and the prices are reasonable too for considering how locally sourced their things are. Very reasonable price, and so very creative. So I can say it's the Marabella, I think is the name of the restaurant. It's on the oncepodcast.com/party page. But so there are certain things like sandwiches, soups, salads, some sides like that are constants. But then the main entrees are what are different every time. And that looks like that'll be really fun. So I have no idea what we'll be eating on that day. But it sounds like it could be really neat. So I'm looking forward to that on Mother's Day. And
That's
we'll be
awesome.
having dinner at 5 o'clock because I want to make sure we have enough time for everyone to get there, have dinner, order, eat, everything. And it's going to be Mother's Day, so it will be a little more crowded too. But then we'll just walk across the street to the coffee shop and arrive there early. We'll watch the special as well as anyone who wants to bring snacks or anything fun like that where it's okay for us to take our own food into the location. Maybe have a barista on site. I don't know yet.
It's very cool. I like that it is a locally sourced place and that it's an independent, I'm assuming independent coffee
Yeah.
shop that you're.
And the place we're
Those are
going to
two of
be,
my favorite things.
yeah, the place we'll be having breakfast too the next morning for anyone who's staying around in town. Let me see. Oh, that reminds me. I should put on the registration form. I ask them which one of these are you planning to attend, so that way I'll reserve a table for 10 and only 3 people show up. Sleepy Bee Cafe is where we will be having breakfast the following morning, and it's another independent place.
If they pushed the finale and had it on hour-long weekend, I could actually come to the party.
That would be cool.
Maybe next year they can do that.
Shh! Don't say that.
What?
Next year.
Push it? Oh, I know. But I mean,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, everyone, thank you very much for joining us. We're going to head out. Have a good night. And please join us again Wednesday at 7 p.m. here at oncepodcast.com/live.
good night, everybody.